Before we get going on today's interview, if you're not already reading Must Read Alaska every day, you're missing half the story. Must Read Alaska is where Alaskans go to find out what's actually happening in this state: the politics, the policy, the people, without the spin you get from the legacy press. Just straight talk, Alaska first. You can support Must Read Alaska with a subscription. Use the code THESOCIAL10 at checkout, and you'll take 10% off our In for News or All In annual plans. That's THESOCIAL10, the Social 10. Go to mustreadalaska.com, hit subscribe on your podcast app, and keep Alaska's most trusted independent news source running.
Welcome to The Social, Must Read Alaska's segment on the events, communities, and conversations that make this state worth living in. I'm your host, Todd. Not too long ago, we celebrated Memorial Day, a day set aside to honor the men and women who gave their lives in service to this country. It means something different in Alaska, where military families are woven into nearly every community and where the cost of freedom isn't abstract, it's personal. It feels right to be recording this between Memorial Day and just before July 4th because this year, July 4th carries extra weight. America turns 250, a quarter of a millennium. There are very few moments in a nation's history where we get to stop and ask, do we still know who we are and where we came from? The men and women we honored on Memorial Day are the latest in a long line of Americans who answered that question with their lives. 250 years ago, a group of colonists did something no one had ever done before. They put faith, family, and individual freedom at the center of a new nation and backed it with their lives, fortune, and sacred honor. 250 years later, that founding story is as contested as it has ever been. What gets taught? What gets emphasized? What gets left out? This coming weekend is Father's Day. So, dads, what better way to get your kids excited about our country's founding than telling them all the great stories of our founding fathers while you're fishing on the Kenai? So, get your fishing done now because on July 4th weekend, an Anchorage educator named Dennis Tayman is doing something about that. He's assembled over 500 pieces of American history. These are artifacts, documents, and relics spanning the 1700s through the 21st century and opened the doors of Mountain City Church for a free community event called America Comes Alive. It's one room, 250 years of this country's story, and a chance for Anchorage families to experience it together. Dennis joins us here today, so welcome to the social, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, giving me the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, of course. So, Dennis, you've been bringing American history to life in Anchorage classrooms since 2011, long before it became a national conversation. So tell us what Tayman tutoring is and what makes your approach different from what kids are getting in the public school system. At 250 years, we have to ask, are we actually teaching the founding or are we teaching around it?
Well, I can't tell you who I am without telling you how it all began. So I'm going to do a little brief backstory so you can get a good thing. So we're going to go back to California in 1993. That's when me and my wife Susan were married. By 1995, we had our first kid, Sarah. And then 5, 6 years later, she's now looking into needing to be educated. 1999 to 2000. Um, the choices were do the Los Angeles school district or outside the box homeschooling. Well, LA's school district was not going to be happening in our life. So we chose to try this homeschool thing. By 1997, we had our second kid, Noah, and then our third kid, Rachel, came in 2001. Well, that very beginning, we connected up to some co-ops, and a co-op is just a bunch of other families that are doing the homeschool thing all together, and we're just going to
Hmm.
do this in a group as a setting. 2002, I got transferred to Alaska, and it's when I discovered that the state of Alaska really did embrace homeschooling. That is to say, If a
Mm-hmm.
family connected up to, and they're still with us today, charter schools, there's many of them around, you could actually get public allotment money and you can teach your kid the way you want them to be taught and not have to worry about the public school system. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we chose to do that. We could choose the curriculum we wanted, and the only thing that you can't do is religious curriculum. And I get that. That's just life the way we are, the way it is. But there are
Mm-hmm.
tons of other topics that you can absolutely dive into. History is one of them that you
Mm-hmm.
can do. And from there, we started homeschooling not one, not two, but all three of them. And we kept on that path even today. Our last one graduated in 2012, 2013, thereabouts. And during that time, one of the charter schools we connected up to was Family Partnership. And in
Mm-hmm.
Family Partnership, they had teachers, sponsor teachers, and one of them was Miss Happy Chronister. She was aware of what I did at that time, and that is sometimes I would be invited to some of the high school classes. And also by that time, I had either acquired at least one of a Civil War cavalry saber,
Oh,
and
wow.
I also purchased a Brigadier General outfit. And
Mm-hmm.
I would wear that and just talk to the students all about some Civil War battlefields. It wasn't that much. I didn't have hardly anything, but it was a lot of fun. It was great. Well, she saw that and said, "Hey, Mr. Tayman, we've lost our history teacher. And if you can do what you do to a bunch of high schoolers, I think you can teach American history as well." And I said, "Well, I'll pray about it." And by September 2011, I was alive and well. I had developed Tayman Tutoring, and off I ran teaching. And the bottom line is, I'm still teaching. That's 14 years later. Now, I have a few focuses that I wanted to do. Number
Yeah.
one, I wanted to relay the stories as they happened. And I'll say it
Mm-hmm.
this way: no massaging the message. A lot
Yep.
of the current, the catchphrase is revisionist history.
Yep.
Well, I've grown up in my background of both faith and learning stuff about what happened, say, in the Revolutionary War, even from the beginning. There are
Mm-hmm.
stories that need to be told that the normal public schools are not going to get there. And so I want to relay these stories. The second thing I want to relay is some kind of tactile, some kind of a visual aid while I was teaching. So these kids, these sophisticated high schoolers, teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
could just engage in some things. I love uh, messages or sermons that have things that you can engage in, not just sit there listening to the speaker. So
Yeah.
between those two things, I've been able to acquire between then and now about 15 to 20 years material, literature.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some really old textbooks, early 1900s, probably 1910, 1915, and they tell the story of American history. They are not afraid to tell you that George Washington was a man of faith. They were not
Mm-hmm.
afraid to tell you certain of these stories. Others are 1963 versions called the Golden Book series, all about
Mm-hmm.
12 volumes of them. They are wonderful to read. And so I have a regular textbook that any public school district would say, "Oh yeah, that's Houghton Mifflin history book," or something like that. They would get a
Mm-hmm.
total thumbs up from it. It's not at all religious, quote unquote, but it works wonderful, and it's a great book. I still have it. It was copyrighted in 2008, so it's getting a little old, but history hasn't changed from the Pilgrims till now. History hadn't changed, so the book is wonderful, and I incorporate all these old stories. And almost every lecture I have has something of that time frame, whether it's a reproduction or an authentic stuff. They get a chance to interact with it, feel it, and they get a chance to question it and ask questions about it. And so if you ask me, what's different about what I do, well, you sort of have picked it up. I was able to teach what I want, teach the stories that are really out there, and the kids get a chance to interact with me, with the objects, with
Mm-hmm.
the stories, and it's been a lot of fun. And with that, knowing that most of the students, when in a homeschool realm, it's not exclusively, but a lot of them are there by choice,
Yeah.
and they're there to learn. That
Yeah.
makes a huge bit of difference. Than that's just where, well, that's where I have to go. That's my local school. But the families don't know, this is where I want you to teach. This is what you're going to meet Mr. Tayman. And they're saying, all right, let's do this. That's a big, big difference. And so that's a little bit about me and how I've come to have Tayman Tutoring. and it's still in play. And I'm still looking forward to this coming fall year.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. I mean, you touched on a lot of different things, especially like the way people learn, right? Not everybody learns by reading, not everybody learns by doing, and you've kind of brought out a lot of the different modalities. And I think what we've seen, especially, over the last several years, is there's just been a growing frustration amongst the parents, and they're looking for that depth to make sure that their kids are learning and getting quality stuff. And so, Tayman Tutoring or other private schools or charters, whatever it may be, have really kind of stepped in to fill a gap that, one has brought back to life some of these things, just as you've said here, is walking into a classroom with a period piece of clothing and artifacts to help really bring this alive. And, this 250, this is the semi-quincentennial. This is a massive event in our country's history. And I mean, this is a cultural reset moment, and it is a chance for us to really reconnect back to what it was, like what makes this country great. So I want to talk about the event here real quick. America Comes Alive. So walk us through what people will actually experience when they come into Mountain City Church on July 4th. What are they going to see? What are they going to do? You've mentioned here that there's 500 some odd artifacts. I mean, this is not an insignificant amount of artifacts, right, that we've accumulated here in Anchorage. So for the 250, I mean, this feels pretty significant. So let's hear it. Walk us through what this will be.
All right. Well, I'm going to start rather uniquely, and I want to read some scripture, Psalm 78, 2 through 7. And this is what it
Hmm.
says: I will teach you hidden lessons from our past, stories our ancestors handed down to us. We will not hide these truths from our children. We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord, his power, and his mighty wonders. He
Hmm.
commanded our ancestors to teach them to their children so that the next generation might know them, even the children not yet born, and they in turn will teach their own children. So each generation should set its hopes anew on God, not forgetting his glorious miracles and obeying his commands. So, do you hear it just in those the power of teaching and experiencing history? Now
Hmm.
you add the elements of our own nation's journey, both the good and the bad, because we're not perfect at it, and all summarized. And with this summarization, I want to read you a secondary excerpt. It comes from a letter that we've sent to churches, and this kind of puts it in, encapsulates it. But then we'll go a little deeper in what this is about. This is what we are saying. Our nation's history has a divine thread that weaves in and out of the events of our past. It is filled with faith, family, and freedom. From the Black Robe Regiment to the First and Second Great Awakenings to the Jesus People movement in the 70s to the early and continuing impact of Billy and Franklin Graham, with that heritage, we are looking to present to the community of Anchorage a journey of our nation's history, from the earliest beginnings to the present day, through an immersive exposition of historical memorabilia. I'll be presenting my entire collection of American history artifacts, along with contributions from a few other local collectors, allowing attendees to see, learn, and touch real pieces of American history. Our nation hasn't gotten it all right. Some of the issues that we walked through, the results were rather tragic. They had some heartache, but God never left us.
Hmm.
And there was always a remnant, a group of people that's going, all right, we started correctly. Let's not forget that. And there was
Hmm.
always a remnant asking God to come in and say, help us. We've messed up. We've gone off track. And I heard it put it this way: God originally chose his own people to create a nation. Back then in the Old Testament, it's called Hebrews, or the Jews today. We came together and chose God and asked him, help us create a nation. That's very, very different from the two. And that's exactly what we've done. We hadn't got it all right, but here we are 250 years, and there are some chinks in the armor, as it were, but it's still there. And there's a remnant that has not stopped saying, God, help us to get back on track. So, this
Hmm.
250 experience is going to showcase our nation's history through the lens of seeing, hearing, touching. And with that, America is going to come alive. There'll be some special talks. some kids' activities, and many will be there in period clothing themselves. They'll be walking decor, walking atmosphere,
Wow.
helping participant families uh, to see things. And we are hoping that as the posters and the information come, now some of your listeners are aware from at least Anchorage perspective, there is a
Hmm.
every 2 weekends in June a Renaissance fair.
Yep.
Well, and if you go there, you know the Anchorage citizens, they show up in all kinds of things, not just the people that have
Hmm.
worked there. Well, we are hoping the same thing occurs, that they will show up on the 4th and the 5th, little kids with revolutionary tricorner hats or their own little Civil War aspects,
Hmm.
1920s, Roaring Twenties, some flapper dresses. Of course,
Yeah.
they're a little bit challenging to get in a good setting, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we're hoping. Now, a little bit of regarding the 500 items. Now, you got to understand it's not all 100% authentic. They are additional, some collectors, like I know a gal who has cameras. She's got one camera that has the bellows. If you remember the bellows, a
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really long accordion type fold. It's
Yep.
about a foot long. And I don't know what other cameras she has, but she's got a bunch of cameras, and we've so got some other collectors. I've also purchased a few reproductions, like I have a Viking sword. Well, no one can get a little authentic Viking sword, but it works great when we talk about the Vikings. We're sort of
Yeah.
beat Columbus a little bit. We've got some pretty strong evidence that it's going to happen or that it did happen. So I'd say maybe 75% of everything that you're going to see in the school gym is going to be 100% authentic stuff from the material.
Wow.
Um, my oldest thing that I have is a 1774 Maryland Continental Bill. If you've ever heard of the phrase "ain't worth a continental," well, that's in the Revolutionary War. Early that the states or the colonies, as it were, they had to do transmit commerce and things like that. Well, they created their own little currency. Well, I've been able to get a 1774 Maryland, and what I've got it on is a reproduction sample that you would buy in a little antique or a visitor center, and below that is the real one. So that's
That's
kind of, and I've
incredible.
got some other things, but that's the oldest that I can confirm. There's something older from the Anasazi Indians who lived in Colorado, of which we again one lecture we kind of go through Cortez or Vasco da Gama.
Hmm.
They run into these Indians. They were the Anasazi Indians. Well, I have a pottery shard, and I show some pictures of some real pottery and say, well, if I compare that shard to the pictures, I think I'm doing all right. So I have no idea how old it is, but I think it's real. Uh,
Wow.
so that's how I see the 500. And 500 also includes the little small bullets from the Civil War or the big things. We've got a kid's a school desk from the early 1900s. There, we've got a flapper dress. We've got,
Hmm.
anyways. I won't give away all the trinkets because you got to come there to
Yeah.
see the rest of it. But that's a little bit about what you're going to experience.
Oh, that's really cool, Dennis. Parents, if you've ever wished your kids could learn the real story of America's founding, the ideas that actually made this country exceptional, instead of the dry, agenda-driven version they often get, you're going to love this. The Tuttle Twins America's History series is two stunning full-color hardback books that take kids on an exciting adventures with Ethan and Emily. Volume 1, The Seeds of Liberty, covers the years 1215 to 1776. It includes everything from the Magna Carta and the birth of limited government through the ideas that sparked the Revolution. Volume 2, Birth of a Nation, picks up with the Revolutionary War, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. These aren't boring textbooks full of dates and battles. They're story driven books that teach kids why it all happened and the timeless principles of liberty, personal responsibility, and self governance they can actually use. Perfect for ages 7 to 12, whether you homeschool or just want something way better for your family. Each volume includes a huge bundle of extras, hundreds of pages of curriculum and activities, the full audiobook, and hours of video lessons. If you want your kids to truly understand and love American history, go right now to www.tuttletwins.com/MRAK. That's www.tuttletwins, tuttletwins.com/MRAK. Use the special Must Read Alaska link to check out the two-volume collection and grab the bundle while the current offer is on. Give your kids the real story. Head to www.tuttletwins.com/MRAK today. You know, you said something earlier, and especially as you were walking through scripture and just how much the providence had just been the beginning with the founders. And, you know, much of what we see today contrasted in our media is we tend to look at these things from a very political point of view and not necessarily understanding the historical aspect. But really what you've described was worldview is very important to the founders of this nation. And so the tagline of this event is faith, family, and freedom. And that's a very specific framing of American history. So can you make the case for our audience of why those three things are the right lens for understanding where this country came from? So at 250 years, with so much debate about what America's founding actually meant, why does this framing hold up?
Let me start by talking a little bit about why July 4th, anyways, or what's the deal about 250th?
Okay.
Well, let's go back to John Adams. He wrote his wife Abigail. This is after the Declaration and all, and he writes them, and he says essentially, Abigail, this day is going to go down in history. It's going to be marked with a lot of fanfare, a lot of excitement. A lot of the church bells are ringing. Sermons are going to be given. Abigail, this is a day to celebrate. And here we are 250 years later,
Mm-hmm.
and he got that right. Now, officially, he mentions July 2nd, and that's okay. That's when the original vote came in. July 4th came in a little later, but we'll give him a pass. We'll give him a pass. And so, why do the 250th history suggest that, well, republics in general have get severely tested right around the 250th year?
Mm-hmm.
It's less than 100 years from our beginning. We had something called the Civil War that
Mm-hmm.
really tested us. So we had to walk through that. Then the 1950s or 60s come in, and we got these civil rights issues that a whole segment of the population was being demeaned simply because of a different skin color.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to go more present day. We got those COVID years. A lot of people saw that the federal government was trying to control the narrative, trying to control the citizens. Freedom was threatened. And today we have the rise of socialism, and it's trying to steal our freedom. Well, the solution, I want to come back to our roots. We're going to visit the Declaration of Independence. That's where things got started. That's where freedom really started to ring. That's where our
Mm-hmm.
faith started to rise up and say, hey, let freedom ring with the Declaration of Independence. So we're also going to revisit stories of very old. We're going to look at some divine intervention, some great awakenings. We're going to relook at some videos to tell the stories. And so all this begins to bring to bear the fact that we do have three things that we need to highlight. Faith, we've already kind of touched a little bit about, but we go all the way back from Columbus through Jamestown, through the Pilgrims, the
Mm-hmm.
Revolutionary War, and the next 250 years, our nations have had a divine thread. And I alluded to it a little earlier. God's hand has been on our nation from the earliest beginnings. The founders from all walks of life. There were even various denominations. They fully embraced the teachings of Christianity. That's
Mm-hmm.
not to say that all were, quote, Christians, unquote, but they saw value in biblical principles as the structure to build a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Again, let me go to John Adams. He said our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other.
Mm-hmm.
It was reasonable then to celebrate, and it's reasonable today to celebrate 250 years of our faith. Our faith has sustained us to get us through tough stuff, the Civil War, civil rights issues. We embraced the faith that says God says all men are created equal. That may not be scripture, but is absolutely in the perspective that God has.
Mm-hmm.
Family. Again, from the Pilgrims onward, families arrived in the New World. Their faith strengthened their family ties, and the biblical idea of family was right at the beginning. Before any government structure, there was a family. There was a guy named, or at least a creature called Adam, a creature eventually called Eve. They got together and they had kids, and that was the structure for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Our nation is built then on families who join together as communities, who then create a government system. And now, when you add godly principles within the context of society, you have something that works. You have faith, you have family, and those two combined then bring us freedom. So let's talk a little bit about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So again, faith from our biblical principles, family then follows those principles, and the results are freedom increases. From scripture, it says this where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So when we invite a godly presence, a deity, a creator, like the Declaration of Independence refers to, that's all positive. This society will grow in freedom. And the other scripture says, when the righteous rule, people rejoice. Now, that's a very risky scripture to bring up, but it simply says if righteous folks who are choosing to take leadership positions
Mm-hmm.
and they have biblical principles, the people rejoice. Why do they rejoice? There's a beauty and the power of freedom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Declaration of Independence has three rights. I'm sure your listeners can, most of them can go, even if I start it: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's right there in the middle? Liberty, freedom. Okay. Allow a person to live, give them freedom, then they get to pursue the purpose that God has for them:
Mm-hmm.
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And after 250 years, that declaration, I think, stands pretty strong, and it is still worth celebrating, even those three rights. So that's how I see the crux of faith, family, and freedom.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, and there's just so much there, and as we talked about, right, that worldview has just shaped so much of the good that we see coming from the creation of this nation. So you're also asking the community to bring some artifacts. So what are you hoping to dig out of their attics and their closets, and why does it matter that this is Anchorage's story, not just America's story?
Well, I want to share a little bit about how this all came about, and that then will tie in to the community. So,
Mm-hmm.
how this all came about: late July last year, 2025. I was talking to my wife and I said, Susan, I'm not going to be teaching forever. I'm 65 years old right now. I'm probably 2 or 3 more years, and then Susan and I maybe do some things, some fun things. But I said, what more am I going to do with all my stuff? I mean, the kids can have some of it when I pass on, but not
Mm-hmm.
all of it. And she goes, is it next year the 250th? Maybe we can find some place and put it all together and do a thing. And I said, well, that sounds like a good idea. Tons of stuff. It's a bit quaky in my knees to think about that. So, not less than a month later, I hear about an organization called Patriot Academy. It's a great
Oh, yeah,
organization. They have
they are.
classes such as biblical citizenship, and that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother topic for another day. Another class they have is rebuilding liberty. As you can imagine, it's all about our nation is needing to be rebuilt. There's some cracks in the liberty. One of the things that they uh, submit, a lot of steps, but find a way to celebrate the 250th. Okay. So when I took that class, a rebuilding liberty class, enter Mountain City Church and a couple by the name of Baxter's, and they heard me say what I'd like to do. And I said, I have no idea how to do this. They said, hold the phone. Our pastor has embraced the fact that we need to do something for the 250th. And I think we can do something together. And by October, a partnership began. And again, our focus, the partner, our focus is we want to partner not just with my stuff, But
Yeah.
Anchorage has got
Hmm.
lots of action, lots of opportunities. We want to partner with churches, which allows God to work in us and to present an event to Anchorage that's never been done before. And over the last 15 to 20 years, again, I have acquired this collection, but I know that there are other organizations. Two of them that are going to be at this event is Alaska Veterans Museum and the
Wow.
McKinley Muzzleloaders Association. Both of those are going to be at this event, and they are have lots of historical stuff. And a lady by the name of Sue Ellens from AVM is going to be there to do some special talks. A guy from the McKinley Muzzleloaders, he's going to be out in the back of Mountain City Church. There is a back lot, a grassy lot. We're
Hmm.
going to be able to do some demos with some muskets. He told me that
Oh, very
instead
cool.
of regular projectiles, he's going to create some water-based newspaper module. You just wet
Hmm.
some material, put it in a little mold, get it really tough, then you can stick it in your musket and go at it. So we're going to have some demos such as that. There's a few
Nice.
individuals that have also stepped up asking about some partnerships. And
Okay.
we've also asked a few other organizations, some nonprofits, that they could be able to share their mission. A lot of them are about families, about
Hmm.
faith, or about freedom. One of those three focuses on the organizations that we've got. And Alaskans have stories to tell,
Hmm.
both verbal and through the treasures that they get. So this is a slight rabbit trail, but I've been able to bring my Civil War display to a few gun shows, and
Hmm.
I've got guys help me, and they all get dressed up, and I tell them before the gun show starts, you're going to interact with some people here. They're going to tell you that, oh, you see that sword? I got one just like it that my grandfather gave me. And
Hmm.
they will regale stories of what they walk through. And I told them, you just sit there and listen. You just absorb it all in. Well, I'm hoping that this event will also do the same. People throughout Anchorage, even some Wasilla, wherever we can get them to come in either with their stuff. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that they'll stand behind a table and share exactly what I've just kind of shared with you. If they
Hmm.
can't, we still can have them. We've got some limited table space. We've got some guy who has like a plank of the USS Yorktown. I don't know how he got it, but it's got official
Wow.
certificates and all that. He's got
Wow.
some flags that were flown, just a myriad of other fun things. A guy who has a pocket watch of all things from his great
Hmm.
great great grandfather in the Civil War. So we're hoping that that'll connect up and I'll be able to put it there. Um, but we'd love to have you there as well if you're listening to
Hmm.
this and you have your own story or your own collection. By the time this airs, I still hope we'll have a few more empty spaces on some tables. Again, we'd love to have you behind that table telling it, but if you can't, I'm sure Todd will be able to relay the contact information. So it's Saturday, July 4th from 12 to 6, Sunday, July 5th from 2 to 6. And again, we've humorously told people, especially if they get a flyer, okay,
Hmm.
are you ready? Get your fishing and your camping done the weekend before or after, and then come in on July 4th, stay
Yes.
local, stay in celebration mode for this 250th, and bring a friend with you. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up, right? Especially in Alaska, because Alaska wasn't even a state for most of those 250 years. But we've been a part of the country's story in ways that always don't make that textbook. And an example that comes to mind, I remember we were out at the Kennecott mine in McCarthy a few years ago, and as we were going through the tour guide had made this comment, and I may get this wrong, but what I remember was when they had the mine open and running, the mine had two holidays that they gave people off. It was Christmas, the birth of Christ, and July 4th. So that, even back then, and the Kennecott mine, this was back in the middle 1900s that it was up and operating, one of the largest copper mines in the world at the time. You could see how significant it was that the 4th of July being a thing here for Alaskans. So I got one last question for you, Dennis, and this is kind of a lightning round. And right off the top of your head, so one thing kids today are not being taught about the founding that they should be. What would you say?
The fact that there was a thread of divineness. The Declaration again speaks of it. They were um, they had the audacity to say that there was a creator and that
Yeah.
he created men equal, and that it was this divine creator that gave us the three rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And some other folks that I've talked to say that even the Second Amendment is not necessarily only about firearms as much as it's a divine right to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect your property. Okay,
Hmm.
so those are the things that would come to mind. That's what students need to know today is they don't have to believe in the God, just embrace the fact that it existed and that they existed. It. You may not go there, and if it's that big a deal, there are other nations that could care less what you believe. For us, we have a creator that we think does exist, does care, and he embraces you whether or not you believe him or not.
Amen. Well, Dennis, this has been great. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk about this event. So everybody, this is Dennis Tayman, founder of Tayman Tutoring and the organizer for America Comes Alive. Dennis, would you mind telling us again when this event is and where people can go and find the information?
All right. So July 4th, Saturday from 12 to 6 at Mountain City Church. It's over there on Northern Lights. I don't have the address with me, but I'm sure Todd and the MRK folks can get that.
You
And
will.
then Sunday, July 5th, we set it up so some folks of faith go do their thing on Sunday morning. So go ahead and
Hmm.
take care of your place of worship, then have some lunch and show up at our place at Mount, or not our place, but Mount City Church at 2 o'clock from 2 to 6. So 12 to 6 on Saturday, sleep in a little bit, worry about the fish that you're not going to catch or that you got all the weekend before,
That's right.
and then Sunday from 2 to 6.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Dennis. And if you have artifacts that you would like displayed, or you want to volunteer or sponsor, you can contact Mr. Tayman here at taymantutoring@gmail.com, or you can go to his website at taymantutoring.com. So, Dennis, once again, thank you very much for your time. We'll post all of the information in the show notes here for the episode so we can get it out to everybody. I'm Todd. This is The Social on Must Read Alaska, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.